I want to say hello to everybody. It's the 13th of June, and it's time for our very special webinar on the science of email deliverability. Difficult word. My name is Magda, and I'm the head of growth at Email Industries. I have a couple of remarks before we begin. This webinar is being recorded currently, so all the attendees will have full access to the recording later. And maybe we can move on to the next slide. So the session will take around 35 minutes with additional 15 minutes for a Q&A session. I really strongly encourage you to send your questions using the Q&A button that is on the bottom of your screens. And we will try and answer as many questions as possible at the end of this webinar. So we are extremely lucky to have two remarkable talents with us. We have LB Blair, the head of deliverability here at Email Industries, and we have Przemysław Debka-Prądziński, customer implementation team lead at GetResponse Max. Now, there's more and more of you, but maybe a couple people don't know what these companies are. So GetResponse Max, it operates as an email and marketing automation platform. It specializes in driving revenue growth through advanced email marketing, marketing automation, and dedicated support. Trusted by 350,000 brands globally for the past 25 years, GetResponse Max is a powerful email marketing and marketing automation platform, whereas Email Industries is a US-based email solutions provider offering a range of innovative products and services aimed at helping businesses optimize their email marketing efforts. So we help organizations worldwide solve their problems, email deliverability problems, and guard against future disruption. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Przemysław and LB. There's literally no email marketing problem that these two cannot solve. So LB, let's hit it. The floor is yours.
All right. Yeah. So today we want to talk about the kind of science. You know, I always say email deliverability is the art and science of making sure that emails land in the inbox and not the spam folder. And today, Shemek and I really want to dive into kind of the science of it. So I think one really hot topic over the last couple of years, and now the dust is settled a little bit on the data, I think we can make some actual, we can discuss some actual findings about it. But, as many of you may know, in September of 2021, Apple released their iOS update that contained mail privacy protection for any users that use the mail client, the iMail client. And what that just does, what we saw with that was a big jump in open rates over time. It didn't happen overnight like I kind of expected, because adoption of the iOS update and, opt-in to Apple Mail privacy protection, all of that took a little while. But typically the way Apple words these privacy protection features, most people go ahead and opt into them. And what it does is when you send an email to anyone using the iMail client, the iMail client, whether they're an iCloud or @me address, or whether it's just their Gmail or Yahoo, whatever integrated, as soon as you send it, if their phone meets the correct conditions, like it's on Wi-Fi, it's charged, all of that good stuff, Apple goes ahead and automatically downloads all the images. And what that means is that all of the opens it just immediately says that it's open. So like as soon as you deliver it, it says it's open. Basically, I think so some people, there was a lot of doom and gloom, and people are like, oh, open rates are dead, they're useless. I'm going to disagree. My hot take is that's not true. And honestly, that really very little has changed. Open rates have always been directional. They're always, it's essentially a workaround the way that we track opens by embedding that 1 by 1 pixel with a unique identifier so that when it gets downloaded, we know who opened the email. And really, there's plenty of ways that can fail. Like if images get blocked, anything like that. I don't think open rates are dead though, because really open rates are always kind of, we've been tracking them by proxy because, Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, they don't tell us who opened the mail. They don't give the sender that kind of information. So really open rates are they're really good at as directional metrics. What's more important is the trend. Are your open rates going up? Are they going down? Are they staying the same? What is the difference between your open rate at Gmail versus Yahoo versus Hotmail versus the average across all of your traffic? Because that can really help you go, oh, well, I've got a 35% open rate at Gmail, but my open rate at Hotmail is only 10%. It's a really strong indicator you've got a deliverability problem. If if your open rate at one mailbox provider is substantially lower than another, good indication you have a problem. And honestly, I would say, originally I would have said, years ago, few years back before this happened, if you're at 20% open rate, you're doing pretty good. You're probably catching the majority of the inbox everywhere. These days, I would say since, all the adoption and everything of iPhone or, the iOS mail privacy protection update has stabilized, I would say it's probably more like a 30% open rate. If you're below a 30% open rate, it's possible you have some deliverability issues. At the very least, that should prompt you to, do a deeper dive.
I fully agree with what you said, LB. I think the looking at the trend is very important in email deliverability, looking at the data that we have and monitoring our situation. Always you need to compare your situation with the previous actions, the results that you generated. So I fully agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my top tips: compare yourself against yourself. People are always asking, it's good to know kind of what the industry averages are. We'll get to that in a little bit. But it's also very important to benchmark yourself against yourself and, celebrate when you have success. Like, if you've got a deliverability problem, you go from a 10% open rate to a 15%. It's a 50% improvement. It's not where you want to be, but it's a substantial improvement. You should celebrate that and keep moving in the direction of greater success. One of my favorite psychological concepts is positive deviance. Instead of trying to look at what went wrong, look at what's going right and duplicate that.
That's a very good approach. And before you whether you're doing good or bad, you should compare yourself with others as well. And I think that's why the next slide can be very useful for you, because we have at GetResponse, we decided to use the data that we collect from all of our customers around the globe. As you know, we have a lot of customers, a lot of data to process, and we spend a lot of days, a lot of weeks to prepare for you the industry reports and benchmarks. You can access it using the link, which we'll paste soon in the webinar chat. But now I'd like to share with you some of the highlights from that report, so you can easily navigate through this report. So first of all, here you will be able to see how different regions work, how are they successful with email deliverability. And what is interesting is that North America has a very high open rates, very high click to open rate as well, and Europe is also close to those numbers, but we have a significant increase in bounce rate. So we can see that in North America, the bounces are close to 4.9%. And in Europe, when we compare those two continents, then we have 2% of bounces. So when we were discussing it before the webinar with LB, we agreed that when it comes to all the regulations that you've heard about, like GDPR, others that are
Castle.
implemented.
Yeah, Castle, Can Spam, and the
Exactly.
CCPA, but I think that's being the CCPR now. I know it's getting updated, but yeah, lots of them.
Lots of them are implemented. I'm already lost with all of their names, but thanks, LB, for reminding me. And we know that Europe is always trying to be up to date with all of their regulations, and then the customers are following it. And we have a lot of questions as well internally from our customers as well when we are trying to prepare for that. And following those regulations is a good thing in general, because you can see now the effect of that in Europe. So the bounces are decreasing because inbox service providers also adjust to what the regulations suggests. And when you use, let's say, double opt-in, when you focus on the quality content and you respect your subscribers' willingness to unsubscribe, and you give them an easy option to do it, and you are removing inactive email addresses, all of the hard bounces, which usually are removed automatically, but then you're not trying to send to them using different tools, then it's usually very effective and you can achieve better results. But those results you can find while scrolling through the report. I wanted to share more details as well here while we are looking at it. So there are results which also tell us what kind of which countries are performing the best in terms of the open rate. For instance, we can see that Netherlands are leading here, France, Australia, Canada, Germany as well. So all of those countries also take care of the regulations, take care of the list hygiene practices, and the bounce rate is pretty low. We can see that the United States individually has 5% of bounce rates. So this is what you can easily check when you're coming from different countries. You can verify how your country performs at GetResponse. We have also looked at different industries. So we can see that communications, nonprofits, they generate the best open rates, but in terms of bounce rate, travel agencies, they were trying to recover from COVID, from all of those limitations, and they were trying to send more and more. We had a couple of customers that were trying to catch up on that market, and unfortunately, it also affects then the deliverability. So you should be aware of that. Results month by month, so we can also monitor the trends, which months are more effective, when people tend to open less emails or click less. So all of those stats are followed by comments from our experts, from marketing teams. So I really encourage you to go through it. And now we can get back to the
I just want to give a quick shout out. I want to give a quick shout out that how well built this is. Can you scroll back up to one of the tables? You can actually sort it by, once y'all get in that link, which we put in the chat, you can actually sort any of those columns and see. So you can sort alphabetically, you can sort by who's getting the best open rate, who's getting the worst click, the worst unsubscribe. So that way, you can really, like I said, it's important to compare yourself to yourself, but then also having some other kind of external data points. Super grateful for GetResponse putting this together, because they have access to just a wealth of data, and serving up these like high level insights really helps people go figure out if they're on the right track or not.
That's true. And we analyzed 7 billion messages. So so you just have the idea of how much of data we analyzed. And but just in 2022, we sent over 30 billion emails just through GetResponse. So we know a little about email deliverability. And while we are here on this topic, monitoring and benchmarking your emails, I cannot stress that enough, that you need to regularly review and analyze your metrics to identify those trends, patterns, opportunities. Because when you see that there is an increase of 1%, 2%, or a decrease, you should use the tool that you have for email marketing to get into the details. If there are no details that you can use, ask the support to provide you with more data, because if you don't know how you perform on specific domains, then you're probably going to miss an important trend for you, and that's why it's crucial to see how you progress, especially if you are changing the provider. It's also important to go through the warm-up process to monitor the situation with the support. If you're going for the dedicated server with dedicated IP and dedicated domain, you can get the best out of it, because we have also customers that switch from the shared infrastructure to dedicated one. And if the warm-up is done properly, then we see even better results on dedicated servers. However, you need to be consistent with the communication. You need to take care of your list and make sure that you start the communication with the best segments that you have. And you should avoid, tricking the inbox service providers, because this always leads to the worst case scenario. But we'll discuss that later on as well. So now,
I say when it comes to the data, I mean, absolutely, GetResponse has a lot. We've got a lot. Google and Microsoft and Yahoo, they got a lot of data. It's not. I don't think it's really possible to kind of fool some of those. It's really it's their sandbox, and if you want to play in it. But no, absolutely, you've got to have that data, or you're just flying blind, and it's it's kind of impossible to fly a plane if you can't see.
that's true.
Okay, so this is one of my absolute favorites. I am a total nerd for bounce messages. I love it when the platform lets you pull those bounce messages out, or if the support team can pull them out and give them to you. That's so helpful to just really, keep an eye on. Like, I even like looking, I'll say this, if your bounce rate is under, as a consumer sender, a direct to consumer sender, or business to consumer, whatever you want to call it, if you're under a couple of percent, you're probably doing pretty good. The thing to be aware of is, as your business scales in send volume, the mailbox providers they're going to hold you to tighter standards. So they're not going to let you bounce as high a percent of mail off their servers if you're sending 10 million emails a month versus if you're only sending like 100,000 emails a month. So just be aware, as you scale, you're absolutely going to be held to stricter standards, because the mailbox providers look at you as a greater risk. You have a greater impact and footprint in their ecosystem. So I like looking at bounce messages, even if a customer's under like 0.5%. It can, sometimes you can find some just little quirky things, like you're on some, some obscure block list, or you're you're submitting your email too fast to BT Internet. I've run into that before, and you just need to adjust the rate at what you're sending. I mean, which that would more be on like your email service provider to kind of tune that at the send engine. But absolutely, I think the bounce messages, especially during a warm up, like Shemek said, it's very important to follow the warming plan. and also regularly review the data exhaust that's coming out, which is that, the open rate by mailbox provider, but also the bounces that are coming out. So, because you can also get deferrals, which are just messages, they are a bounce, but they're like a temporary soft bounce that are like, hey, I'm not going to accept this message right now. Try it again in a little bit. Or some servers, practice gray listing, which means, as the first time you send to them, that they're going to automatically bounce it. And if you're using a good reputable sending platform like GetResponse, they're automatically going to retry that and get past that gray listing for you. So I think that, it's really, and the important thing is as a sender, there are precious few data sources that come back to you directly from the mailbox providers. Because like we already said, with opens, they don't tell us who opened, they don't tell us who clicked, they don't send that data back to the sender. If you're lucky, they'll tell you who marked the email a spam complaint, but that's typically not 100%. Last I heard is that AOL was the only holdout that still had had a fully granular feedback loop, but with Microsoft and Yahoo, they only send you a percentage of them, and Gmail won't tell you who complained at all because they think it's a violation of their user privacy to let them know who complained. And I think that it's definitive information directly back from the mailbox provider, the source of truth, about how your mail was handled at a specific point in time. And a lot of bounce messages are really rich. Like they'll give you, Google will usually send you an article link back. AT&T, in a lot of cases, they'll send you literally the email back that you need to contact to get unblocklisted. Mimecast, in the business to business market, their spam filter will absolutely send you the article links, and you just go to the article link and the anchor, and it tells you exactly what's going on. And there's so many, especially I'd say in B2B, that's more common, that they send back those really verbose bounce messages that will, give you an article that are like, hey, here's what you need to do if you think this bounce is an error. I think that, one resource that we've got here, if we can throw it in the chat, is the SMTP field guide. It's really great for if you get a bounce message back and you're like, I've got no idea what this means. I mean, honestly, step one is to Google it. I worked on Chinese deliverability before, and I don't speak Chinese, and I would literally just copy the bounce messages, Google them, and then use the Google translator to translate. And it would generally get close enough. And, I've even had to reach out to postmasters like that, just using Google Translate and looking at the bounce messages. And I mean, if you don't have a Chinese translator sitting right next to you, that's fluent, it's the next best thing. And it's better to try that than to not really have anything, and that could be important sending into Europe. I've had to deal with, if French providers, bouncing email messages and things like that. And I think it's just, reading those tea leaves, honestly. It's like all right, we did the send, we've drunk the, we've done the send, what's left over, what came back to us, what didn't go out of the server. I think it can be really enlightening and give you very high fidelity data about, what potential problems you may have.
Yeah, that's really true what you said, LB, and I think checking the bounces is the best option to like avoid then increasing the volume and then like totally messing things up. Because if you're avoiding those small signals, then you're just asking yourself for a problem. And this is really important. Usually, when we have new customers, they are like fascinated by the new software and they want to go ahead full throttle and just use the list that you have never used before, and now everyone is like, yeah, that might be the best idea to just monetize it, but that's the worst idea, right? So then we see all the increases in all of the bounces, different types are appearing in the logs, and then we need to stop before it crashes, and then it's too late. And now we are.
Yeah, because the more
mhm.
I was gonna say, the more mail you bounce off a server, the further you increase that spam filter's conviction that you deserve to be bounced. So if you just keep, you know, trying to throw the messages at a closed door, it's going to get worse and worse.
That's true. Totally true. And that's why you need to focus on segmentation. Because without segmentation, you will just send to all of your contacts at once, and you will probably end in spam, and then you will blame everyone that this is, of course, not your problem. And now we need to do something about it. That we need to change the IP address or change the domain, and find the magic trick to solve all of the problems. But the truth is that nothing has changed. We need to send relevant content to the right audience in order to achieve the best deliverability. And when I look at the customers that are going through the implementation of GetResponse, I can see that this works. And of course, now inbox service providers look more at the brand. So the from domains are also important in terms of building your reputation. So if you're switching the IP address that is going to deliver your messages, and you do not authenticate your from domains, then it's also suspicious to the ISPs, and your reputation may be at risk. So also remember about SPF, DKIM, DMARC. This will all help with the reputation. But once this is all covered, so you know that you are fully authenticated, you have done your homework, and you use the tool that is also compliant with all of the regulations, because this is very important as well, then you can focus on the segmentation and on the content that you will send. I had a very successful customer who switched from the shared IPs to the dedicated ones, and they started with marketing automation. So they were only sending the messages to the best contacts using the best, most creative campaigns. And they were A/B testing the subject lines, A/B testing the call to action buttons, and adding some GIFs to engage the audience. And I haven't seen better results after that. And slightly, then they switched to the newsletters. With marketing automation, it can be difficult to control it because sometimes the increase in the volume can be too high, and then you should gradually increase during the warm-up. So sometimes it's better to use the segmentation on your regular database and then prepare the warm-up messages for your audience. But marketing automation is like the one-to-one communication with your customers, so it always looks great in the eyes of the inbox service providers. So this is, if you are in danger when it comes to your reputation, think about marketing automation. This is going to help you, because this will increase your open rates, click rates, and then naturally affect positively your reputation. And you should check whether there is any decrease in the open rate. So if you're using segmentation, some of the tools can give you a hint. So in GetResponse, you can find the automated segmentation for your contacts, which is looking at the engagement of your subscribers. So we will automatically assign a score to your subscriber, and we will monitor their engagement while you're using GetResponse. And you have 5 stages. So there is someone who's totally cold, like the subscriber is not active anymore. And on the other side of the scale, you have the high engaged subscribers. So then if you're creating, let's say, 5 segments, and then you can see what are the changes in the segments. If the less engaged group is increasing, then you should think about the re-engagement campaigns for them, but don't go crazy with re-engagement campaigns, because then you're sending more messages to people that are in the less active segment, and you are neglecting the those that are really your best audience. But you need to, what we mentioned before, you need to focus on domain-specific statistics. You can find it also in GetResponse. When you go to the reports, you will see each newsletter divided, the opens and clicks and bounces, all of the data is divided by the inbox service provider. So you can see that, okay, I can see that there is a 40% open rate, and it's going well for the last 3 months. But we noticed that for Yahoo or AOL, there was a slight decrease in the opens, and then a slight increase, let's say, in the soft bounces. The overall score still can be around 40. It can be 38, 42, but just for Yahoo and AOL, it may go down. Then you may have problems with noticing it if you're not looking at the specific inbox service provider. So those kind of segments are very important as well to monitor, and this will help you avoid sending to spam. And then usually we have customers asking, what should we do with those that are inactive? And it's very hard to say no to those huge numbers of contacts which you generated for years, and now they are ready to be just removed. And people tend to keep those segments somewhere for the bad times, and then we'll get back to them. But with each month, you're getting higher chances of sending to spam traps. And we don't like spam traps, and we hate them, to be honest, because the more spam traps you have, the worse for you. And usually when we look at our database, we can see that contacts that send to less active subscribers tend to have increase in the spam traps. So we monitor that as well for you, and then we suggest to just get rid of those contacts, because spam traps are really bad for your reputation. And sometimes people think that, so what are those intervals? What are those, when we can assume that the contact should be in the segment that is less active? People are surprised when we say that, if the contact has not engaged with your content in the last 90 days, it can be already a sign that they're not interested anymore, because let's say they signed up, 3 months ago, they opened one message, and then they didn't open any other of your messages, and they forgot about who you are. For you, you're, sending the best content, of course, but, we get as recipients, we get hundreds of messages each day. So that's why you need to sometimes understand that you need to put yourself in the shoes of your subscribers, and then test it out, changing the intervals, trying to understand, maybe, okay, this is a segment that should be now removed, and let's see how it's going to affect our deliverability, if we can increase the open rates, or if it's having no effect.
Yeah, I managed to do with an e-commerce conglomerate with several brands. We did a data study and honestly found at least 90% of the purchases that we got from any given newsletter send, like promotional send, came from the last 30 days engaged segment. And then the tail end of it, we sent out to 120 days. We used the domain specific segmentation. And at Apple, we could even reach back as far as 210 days. And it's good to get some additional sales, but I can tell you statistically, it does not move the needle very much. It's you'll get maybe 0.5% of sales from that last 91 days onward. If people haven't engaged in over 90 days, really unlikely that they're gonna. But yeah, no, I think those are all amazing points. Email is a game of press your luck, but if you want to drive the race car as fast as possible and not crash into the rails or flip it, you got to be looking at the metrics. But yeah, if you could
True.
take us to the next one. I'm going to really quickly go through how content can affect. This is kind of part of the science. This is, I guess, the tech of email a little bit. Like, as far as people who are musicians, they're, technically proficient at their instrument. These are content, the things I'm going to cover, because I am not like a content creative genius. So I'm going to cover just kind of the down and dirty things for you that you want to consider, and just make sure those are all buttoned up with your email service provider, with whatever platform. So just be aware if there are errors in your HTML code, that can make your content look suspicious. Like, it can look inherently scammy or spammy, because scammers and spammers don't spend a lot of time on their content. The other thing, I'm going to skip over that one point and go to spelling mistakes. That's another one, just in the plain text, that's kind of similar to a HTML code error, just in language. And spelling mistakes make your emails look inherently spammy. And in part, that's because scammers and spammers actually purposefully misspell things, because they found that people who don't care about or don't notice those misspellings are easier marks. Another thing you should always sort out with your email platform is making sure that any of the links, any of the images you're hosting, anything in the email body is HTTPS secure, and encrypted with TLS, and not just plain HTTP, because that is a main thing that people are looking for, which is, or a main thing mailbox providers are looking for, which is security. Their prime objective is to secure their users against email-based attacks, which still represent about 80% or more of all hacking, phishing, malicious internet attacks start with email. So that's why spam filters are purposefully so hard to get through. Other thing, message file size. I've seen this really, you want to make sure that your email provider has a really nice drag and drop editor, or if you're using an email developer, that their code is very clean and minified, and it's not a big bloated file size. Because if you think about it, like Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, every message you send them and they put in the inbox, they're going to store that message pretty much indefinitely, and it's just going to sit on their server. So if you're sending them 100 kilobyte file after kilobyte file, I know 100 kilobytes, to us, that's nothing. We've all got 4 or 5 20 gig hard drives, 20 terabyte hard drives now, or whatever. But, there's billions of messages in the air a day. And the other big one is that I've seen a really recent example of is Hotmail and Office seem to really, I know there's been a lot of talk about how keyword filtering is dead, and I think that is largely true, but I've seen a couple of recent and consistent examples with Hotmail and Office. They don't like putting words in all caps. They don't like if you try to spoof like a reply with RE colon, or a message forward if it's not actually a message forward. Like, basically, don't try to mimic correspondence mail with your promotional mail, because mailbox providers are going to figure it out. You're not going to trick them for very long, and you might trick them for a second, and then it's going to quickly tank your reputation. And it's like, you're going to trade a really short-term gain for long-term pain. And yeah, we can go on to the next one. So this is a meaty one. We'll have to keep it quick.
Yeah, thanks, Olby. And I think it's important, the content is always after the segmentation. So, once first of all, you have all of the technical details completed, then you should look at the segmentation, and then you should always look at the content and make sure that everything is correct. So that's why we discussed all of these parts of deliverability, and now let's focus on the techniques for re-engaging the sender's reputation once it's damaged. This happens, unfortunately, too often, especially for those customers that are just starting aggressively and trying to achieve, quick wins, importing contacts that are old, that are from their CRMs, never used for marketing, and now we are trying to deliver messages to those that do not expect any messages from us, and especially when you are switching to a new ESP and you're having a proper warm up, so your messages are landing in the inboxes, and then you're slightly switching to the bad apples to your less engaged lists, and those lists, they can get the emails in their inboxes for the first time, because the IP is properly warmed up, the reputation is high, and those people have never received messages from you because previously they landed in spam, and now they're clicking spam complaints as crazy, like crazy, and then this is really bad for your reputation. But when it comes to the like recovering from a bad situation with your deliverability, you need to always think about where you are with a specific ISP. So the same applies to the segmentation, looking at the statistics, and also for the recovering from the damaged reputation. So you need to know what works for specific inbox service provider, and we are here to help. Of course, this is our job. We know the new rules, what should be applied, and then we will suggest the best plan for you to follow. And the best what you can do in that situation is to send the best content and kind of redo the warm-up, and make sure that you're now being fully transparent with anyone that is supporting you in that journey. So you are telling us, okay, we messed it up. We want to do it better. So we are giving you, the best contacts, the best content, and we're trying to send it now. And before we do it, we should, on your behalf, contact the inbox service providers and inform them that, okay, they understand their mistake, and we are stepping in. We are putting our reputation at risk, and we are informing the ISP that we know that the customer now will be compliant with all of the regulations, and so let them in. And then you will see that they are really going to take care of the proper warm up, and they will do good now. And this usually works.
I think that I was just going to say, one thing I think that all of us highlights is super important is that if a sender is having problems, it's always incumbent upon the sender to make a change, to be the one to catch the issue, diagnose the issue. And I mean, the sending side, which includes your ESP. And I think you highlight a great point that your email service provider, in a lot of cases, you have to reach out to these mailbox providers and block lists with a very gentle touch. And I think it's best to leave that to people that have a lot of experience doing that, because I've seen people really shoot themselves in the foot by saying the wrong thing when I work deliverability at ESPs, and even customers that tried to fix it themselves before they came to me. Absolutely, it's so important. But yeah, you also need to recognize, like, they're kind of sticking their neck out for you. So don't me yelling at them like, why is my email not delivering? I can guarantee you it's going to be something that happened. Even with like migrations, I've seen sometimes maybe your undeliverables file didn't come over, or the unsubscribes didn't get suppressed properly from the old platform. All of that can get you off on the wrong foot. And then, but if you fix it, I would say every situation's recoverable. I'd say I've never seen a situation that wasn't recoverable, though I have had to tell a sender, okay, you can't send a Gmail now. Like, we've got to time it out. We've just got to wait, and then we'll try again in a week. And if that didn't work, we're going to wait 2 weeks. And I had a client get hacked once. So it was about 4 months before they could get back into Google, because they told me it was fixed. So I reached out to Google, and it wasn't fixed. They got recompromised. And then Google was not as accepting of my outreach. But yeah, let's see. I think, are we good for a couple of questions? I had, Magda, were you going to ask the questions, or do you want me to ask Shemek the next question?
I think I can take over. But before we do
Awesome.
this, thank you so much for all your insights. This was really a very knowledge-packed webinar so far, and there's even more coming. We probably will not be able to answer all the questions that have been sent to us, but don't worry, we'll be covering them later in both GetResponse and Email Industries content. So let's start with a quick question to Przemek.
Sure.
Can you send from different from names using the same email and IP?
Yes, definitely. When you set up your email campaign, you can select different types of from email addresses with so it can be even the same email address, but there is a different name which is displayed when your recipients open the message. So we can still use the same email address for multiple names. And when you set up your account, of course, you can have, let's say, one main IP address or more if you send high volume. But and then you have the main domain that is assigned to the IP address if you're having a dedicated domain. But still, you can have as many separate different from email domains from email addresses as you wish. So there's no limit. And this is available in GetResponse. I'm not sure how it works in other providers, but I guess it's fairly the same.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it was quite a informative answer. And LB, Stephen asks, is it valuable mining the alternative contact data bounced back in the out of office messages?
So I would say for bulk or promotional marketing purposes, no, because you're not going to have permission to email those contacts. They've not opted in for you. I mean, it might be useful for you to have that info, but I would say, maybe if you've been emailing a client contact and, if somebody's like a current client and maybe you get an out of office message that says they're on maternity or paternity leave, or, they're on vacation for a while, maybe, but I would say that's not a bulk marketing kind of concern. I would say that's more, I'd probably have a real human, correspondence mail reach out to them and, see if they want to be on the marketing list. So it's going to be, in general, I'd be concerned, especially in Europe with GDPR and in Canada with Castle and a bunch of other countries with similar, opt-in requirements in the law, in the regulations. I would be very averse to opening myself to that risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. I think we're gonna finish off with one more question. How about this one for Przemek, maybe? What is the GetResponse strategy for when to remove bounces? Is it immediately or after several bounces?
That's a very good question, because you need to get rid of those bounces, and you need to classify them, identify them properly as well. And we do that part for you automatically at GetResponse. So when we know for sure that there is a hard bounce, it is removed automatically. If we are not sure about the hard bounce, we try to deliver it one more time to be like 100% sure that this is a hard bounce. When we have soft bounces, you just need to look at those soft bounces from two different perspectives. First of all, whether the soft bounce is really a problem because of the recipient inbox is, let's say, full, or there are some missing parts of the configuration, or the soft bounce is an effect of your poor reputation as a sender. Because then if you have soft bounces, connected with your reputation, we cannot remove those email addresses because it's not the email address's fault. It's the fault of a sender that the reputation is low and the inboxes do not accept any more of your content, of your messages to the specific domains, specific email addresses. So that's why we also classify them differently and only remove those that are caused by some problems with the specific email address. And we try to deliver 4 times to those soft bounces that are not connected with your reputation as a sender. So that's the general idea. And I have also a link to our FAQ. So I can paste it on the chat to everyone, so you can check what kind of bounces we monitor and how we process them at GetResponse.
Cool. Thank you. I can see that the link is already there. So thank you for that. We're gonna have to wrap up. I'm really sorry. We are 2 minutes after our time, so it's still not bad. I would like to thank both of you as well as GetResponse Max for the opportunity to run this webinar together. I want to thank all the attendees that have come here and that sticked all the way to the end. We hope you use this knowledge, and don't forget to follow both companies on social media to stay up to date with all things email deliverability and marketing automation. So thank you so much, Przemek and Blair, LB Blair. And
it was a
bye-bye.
pleasure. Thanks for organizing
Yes,
it.
thank
Take care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.